Thank you for joining us. I'm Travis Speakman, Chair of the Local 858 Pension Committee. In November of 2013, members from the local formed a committee to look into the proposed statewide vote coming this June of 2014. This vote would be to increase what you pay into your pension by 4%. The committee's purpose is to inform you on what your pension is, how it came to be, and what the statewide vote would do for you. We have prepared a series of slideshows explaining how each one of the components of your pension works and how that proposed change will affect you. One thing to keep in mind as you go through these presentations, we are not financial advisors. We cannot, and we will not give financial advice on what you should do with your money. Everybody's financial situation is different, and giving financial advice without a license is both illegal and unethical. Our committee's intent is to educate you on what options are available as a member of this plan and what changes you will be voting on. This presentation is part one of several videos that will talk about your pension options, the SRA, the drop, deferred retirement, and finally the statewide vote. But before we get too far ahead of ourselves, let's start with step one, your pension. In this presentation, we will introduce you to your pension, how it came about, and why we have what we have today. We will also talk about the normal payment option and why that is so important going forward. In later presentations, we will get into how the normal payment option becomes a basis for all the other choices you have at retirement. The FPPA manages several plans throughout the state, as seen by this graph. As Denver firefighters, you participate in a statewide defined benefit plan. This is mandatory, and it takes the place of participating in Social Security. Because Denver firefighters don't pay into Social Security, you will not receive a Social Security benefit from this department. However, it is still possible to receive a benefit if you have worked 40 quarters in a Social Security system, either prior to or in conjunction with your fire department job. There will be a reduction in your Social Security benefits if you are eligible because of your mandatory participation in this plan. There are two additional blocks under the statewide defined benefit square seen here, one for reentry group and one for supplemental Social Security employers. Those don't apply to the Denver Fire Department, so let's get rid of those. As a Denver firefighter, the only thing on this chart that applies to your pension is the statewide defined benefit plan. But what about my 457? Doesn't that apply here? Well, the answer is no. If you look at the top here, it says FPPA administered plans. FPPA does not administer 457 plans for the Denver Fire Department. TIAA-CREF does, as of January 1st of 2014. Consequently, it will not be affected by this vote. There is one other thing that may apply to you on this chart. It's the statewide death and disability plan. But this is not part of your pension unless you become disabled, at which time this takes the place of your statewide defined benefit plan. This also is not affected by the vote in June, so for this conversation, it is irrelevant. So now that we've established we are part of a defined benefit plan, let's find out what that really means. With the statewide defined benefit plan, you contribute 8% of your base salary and the city contributes another 8% for a total of 16% going towards your pension. So what makes up your base salary? By FPPA definition, base salary is your salary plus any longevity pay and shift differential you may receive. Not included is any overtime or acting pay, accumulated sick or vacation pay, or fringe benefits such as a uniform allowance or birthday pay. So what does that 16% provide for you? Well, it provides what's called the base benefit. The base benefit is the set amount of money you will receive at retirement for the rest of your life, otherwise known as your defined benefit. This set amount of money can come in several forms, as we'll talk about in other presentations. But first, let's establish the groundwork for which all the other choices are based off of. So how did our pension get to be what it is today? Well, up until 1978, each municipality or protection district with paid police or firefighters administered its own local pension plan. State statute defined how these benefits would be structured, but the administration and funding was left largely to local governments. There was also no statute that guaranteed that these local pension plans had to be actuarially sound, meaning having the resources to be able to pay for the promised plans they offered. By 1977, a study by the Colorado General Assembly proved these local pension plans were upwards of $500 million underfunded. As a result, a series of reform bills were enacted in 1978 and 79. These bills created the Old Hire Pension Plan and the New Hire Pension Plan on April 8, 1978. Those employees hired prior to April 8th became the Old Hire members, and those after became the New Hire members. The Old Hire Plan legislation set up a program for partial state funding if the employers agreed to significantly increase their contributions and establish minimum member contributions in order to fund their plans on an actuarially sound basis. The Old Hire Plan was simple. 50% base salary after 25 years of service and at least age 50, or you lost all of your pension benefits. There was no vesting. However, the old hire plan did have an escalator clause, meaning when the union contract provided for a raise, so did the old hire pension. On May 31, 2013, the state completed its obligation to fund this plan, and notably, the old hire pension plan is not affected by this vote either. The beginning of the new hire pension plan brought pretty significant changes to the way pension plans were run in Colorado. The FPPA and its board of directors were established to oversee the new statewide defined benefit plan. The mechanism for funding shifted from the local authorities, which ultimately led to the old plan's demise, to a combination of member and employer contributions. Gone were the days of 25 years service and age 50 or you received nothing. Members were now vested after 10 years. However, the benefit still remained 50% of your base salary at 25 years of service, and the retirement age was increased to 60. In 1983, the board of directors reduced the retirement age to 55, and in 1988 the SRA, or Separate Retirement Account, was created. Remember when I talked about the base benefit and what it was? The base benefit is what you will receive for the rest of your life in retirement. It's your defined benefit. So how does that relate to this, the SRA? Well, your base benefit has a cost. It's the cost of the investments the plan is in each year to provide you with your defined benefit at retirement. Let's throw out some hypothetical numbers to explain this concept. You pay 8% of your base salary into the benefit fund, and the city pays another 8% for a total of 16%. Let's say the base benefit price, for sake of discussion, only costs 14% this year. This 14% is purely for discussion, as the cost of your base benefit fluctuates with market conditions from year to year, but let's call it 14 for now. Where does that extra 2% go? Well, it goes to a couple of places. First, the board sits down with the plan actuary each year and projects how sustainable the plan is for 40 years, based off of the previous year's market gains or losses. Off of those numbers, the board can choose to issue a cost of living adjustment for retirees for that year. Cost of living adjustments are not guaranteed, since they depend on the money coming in from the investments and how much FPPA is paying out in defined benefits, projected out 40 years. Any leftover money can then go to your SRA, or Separate Retirement Account, after the cost of living adjustments have been made for that year. We'll get much more in depth with this in later presentations, but for now, let's just keep this in mind as we continue on. 16% minus the base benefit cost equals the opportunity for a cost of living adjustment to retirees and the opportunity for an SRA allocation for that year. You have no say over this. This is how the plan works. Some of the biggest changes to the new hire plan came throughout the late 90s and into the 2000s. The creation of the drop occurred, pop-up provisions were introduced, and the granddaddy of them all, the tiered multiplier, was introduced, which set the stage for the pension we have today. In 2001, the normal retirement age was changed to what we have today, age 55 and 25 years of service, and in 2003 the vesting was changed from 10 years to our current 5. Let's revisit the tiered multiplier, since this is how we calculate our pension today. Once you reach 5 years of service and are considered vested in the pension, years 5 through 10 of your employment earn you a 2% credit towards your base benefit at retirement, and years 11 and beyond then earn you a 2.5% credit. This is what is called the tiered multiplier. There are different tiers of credit for the different lengths of time you serve in active service. I'll explain this more on the next slide. Old hires, yours is different than this. For the sake of this discussion, we will focus on the new hire plan, since this is the plan that is affected by this vote. It is important to remember that 50% of your base salary and age 60 is the original design of this plan. When we talk about this upcoming vote, just remember everything except this original design is elective and can be reduced or rolled back should the plan face funding shortages in the future. So here is the tiered multiplier table. If you look at years 5 through 10, you will see that 2% credit I talked about in the last slide, while years 11 through the end of your career earn you 2.5%. These are multipliers that FPPA uses to calculate your pension payouts. Should you choose the normal payment option at retirement, this table becomes the basis for your pension. So what exactly is the normal payment option? Well, the normal payment option is what came into effect when the pension was created. You work so many years, you get so much money at retirement. Remember, under the original design of this plan, that was 50% of your salary at age 60. Today's tiered multiplier, introduced in 2000, allows you to receive much more than the original design of the plan. The minimum somebody could receive if they reach normal retirement at 25 years of service and were at least age 55 would be 57.5% of their salary. You can easily see the benefit to the tiered multiplier, as someone could conceivably earn as much as 100% of their salary in retirement if they were hired at age 21 and worked till age 63 without dropping. Should you choose the normal payment option at retirement, be aware that when you pass away, all of your benefits go away, and nothing is paid to your beneficiary. However, if at the time of your death you have not recouped the total amount of contributions you made over your career, your 8%, plus any service credits you may have purchased, the remaining money plus 5% interest will be paid to your beneficiary in one lump sum. Notice there are 3 ways to take your pension: normal retirement, early retirement, and vested retirement. Your benefit is determined by your age at retirement, the years of service you have in, and the average of your highest 3 years' base salary. I often hear people say your pension is based off of your last 3 years. That is not true. Here is an example where your highest 3 years may have come somewhere other than your last 3 years. Let's say you were promoted to division chief, spent time in a subdivision, and then returned to the districts as an assistant chief, and then retired as such. Your pension then includes that time at the higher rank, even if it is not held for 3 years. This works with any rank, including technician. If you made technician salary for 2 years, and then returned to firefighter first grade, those 2 years would be used in your average when figuring your highest 3. It is simply an average of your highest 3 years over the course of your career. Let's do an example of the normal payment option. This is Uncle Pennybags. He is retiring this year and is looking at his pension options. His highest 3 years average salary comes to a total of $50,000. He is age 55 and has 25 years of service, and is looking at the normal payment option. To calculate what he will get, he will take his service credits earned, in this case 57.5%, and multiply that by his highest 3 years average salary to come up with $28,750. This is how much his base benefit will be in his first year of retirement. Cost of living adjustments compound on this from year to year, making his benefit increase over time. Remember, cost of living adjustments are not guaranteed and are determined by the board on a year-to-year basis based off of the strength of the plan. When the plan has a larger margin of funding, larger cost of living adjustments are given. When the plan faces a narrower margin of funding, smaller cost of living adjustments are given. Simple enough, right? Well, that is one of 8 total choices Uncle Pennybags has with his pension. We'll explore the others in another presentation. Let's recap everything we've covered so far. In this presentation, you learned that you're part of a statewide defined benefit plan. You also learned how and why our pension is what it is today. We briefly touched on the SRA. Your 8%, plus the city's 8%, is used to purchase your base benefit. Any extra after a cost of living adjustment goes to your SRA. And finally, we talked about what the normal payment option is, and why it is the basis for everything else you will do with your FPPA pension. All of your other FPPA options are built off of this normal payment option multiplier. Feel free to learn more about your normal payment option multiplier table on FPPA's website at www.fppaco.org. Thank you for joining us, and please watch our other presentations covering the other options you have with your FPPA pension.
Money, get away.